Picture the Amazon rainforest from high above, as if you were floating in the infinite darkness of space, gazing down at Earth's most mysterious realm. Below stretches an ocean of green, so vast it defies comprehension. 6 million square kilometers of living canopy that breathes with the planet itself. From this celestial vantage point, the forest appears untouched, pristine, a verdant carpet woven by nature's hand across the heart of South America. But what secrets sleep beneath this emerald veil? The canopy below pulses with life: jaguars padding silently along ancient paths, parrots painting the air with impossible colors, rivers threading like silver serpents through a labyrinth of green. Every leaf whispers stories in languages older than human memory. The very air shimmers with moisture that has cycled through countless generations of trees, carrying within it the breath of civilizations that may have risen and fallen beneath this living roof. As dawn breaks across this endless expanse, mist rises from the forest floor like the ghosts of forgotten dreams. Somewhere in that ethereal haze, buried beneath layers of decomposing leaves and tangled roots, lie clues to humanity's hidden past. The trees stand as silent sentinels, guardians of secrets that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about our ancestors. The Amazon has always been more than a forest. It is a world unto itself, a realm where the boundaries between myth and reality blur like shadows at twilight. Here, time moves differently. A single tree can live for centuries, its rings recording droughts and floods, wars and peace, the rise and fall of peoples whose names have been swallowed by the green darkness. Scientists estimate that we have barely scratched the surface of what lies hidden beneath the canopy. For every species discovered, 10 more remain unknown. For every ancient site unearthed, 100 more sleep undisturbed in the forest's embrace. The Amazon holds its secrets close, revealing them only to those patient enough to listen to its ancient whispers. What if this seemingly untouched wilderness once echoed with human voices? What if cities once gleamed where now only trees reach toward the sky? The forest keeps its counsel, but modern technology is beginning to pierce the green veil, revealing glimpses of a past that may be far more complex and magnificent than we ever dared imagine. The Amazon is not merely a collection of trees and rivers. It is a living library, its pages written in soil and stone, its stories waiting to be read by those brave enough to venture into its emerald depths. Centuries before satellites could peer through the canopy, European explorers sailed into the mouth of the Amazon River with hearts ablaze with golden dreams. The year was 1541, and Francisco de Orellana's expedition had stumbled upon something that would haunt the European imagination for generations to come. Tales of El Dorado, the legendary city of gold that supposedly gleamed somewhere in the jungle's green heart. The myth of El Dorado began not as a place, but as a person, the Golden One, a ruler who, according to indigenous accounts, would cover himself in gold dust and make offerings to the gods in sacred lakes. But as the story passed from tongue to tongue, from conquistador to conquistador, El Dorado transformed from a man into a city, then into an entire golden kingdom, hidden somewhere in the unmapped vastness of South America. These weren't mere fantasies born from European greed. The Spanish had already witnessed the impossible wealth of the Aztecs and Incas. They had seen Tenochtitlan rising from Lake Texcoco like a fever dream made manifest, its temples gleaming in the Mexican sun. They had watched as rooms filled with Incan gold were melted down into bars, wealth beyond imagination transformed into mere metal. If such civilizations could flourish in the mountains and valleys, what wonders might lie hidden in the Amazon's green embrace? The quest for El Dorado became a consuming obsession that claimed thousands of lives. Expeditions vanished into the forest like morning mist, leaving behind only bones and broken dreams. Sir Walter Raleigh himself mounted 2 expeditions into the Orinoco River system, convinced that Manoa, the Golden City, lay just beyond the next bend in the river. He returned empty-handed, but unbroken in his belief, writing of lands where the ground hath no other covering than gold. But what if these explorers weren't entirely wrong? What if their fevered imaginings were sparked by fragments of truth glimpses of real civilizations that had indeed flourished in the Amazon? Indigenous accounts spoke not just of gold, but of great cities connected by rivers, of peoples who had mastered the forest in ways that seemed impossible to European minds. The Muisca people of Colombia did indeed practice the golden ritual that gave birth to the El Dorado legend. Their ceremonies at Lake Guatavita involved offerings of gold and emeralds to water deities, rituals that had been performed for centuries before the first Europeans set foot in the New World. If such traditions existed in the Andes, might they not have existed in the Amazon as well? As the centuries passed, El Dorado faded from obsession to legend, from legend to metaphor. But the dream never truly died. It simply waited, sleeping in the collective unconscious like a seed in forest soil, ready to sprout anew when the time was right. And perhaps, just perhaps, that time has finally come. Long before the Spanish conquistadors ever dreamed of Amazonian gold, the rivers of the rainforest pulsed with human activity. These were not barriers to civilization, but highways, liquid roads that connected communities across thousands of miles of otherwise impenetrable jungle. The Amazon River system, with its countless tributaries snaking through the green labyrinth, formed a transportation network more extensive than any Roman road system, more complex than the Silk routes of Asia. Picture these waterways as they might have appeared 500 years ago, before disease and conquest shattered the indigenous world. Canoes carved from single massive trees glide silently through dappled water, their occupants expert navigators who read the river like a familiar book. They know where the currents run swift and where they meander lazily through oxbow lakes. They understand the seasonal rhythms, when the rivers swell with rainwater and when they retreat, revealing beaches that will serve as temporary settlements. The rivers were more than mere transportation routes. They were the arteries of a living civilization. Along their banks, communities developed sophisticated systems of aquaculture, creating fish farms and turtle pens that could feed thousands. They built elaborate canal systems that channeled floodwaters for irrigation and transportation. Archaeological evidence suggests that some of these waterways were artificially modified, straightened, deepened, and connected in ways that speak of coordinated planning on a massive scale. Consider the Llanos de Mojos in Bolivia, where researchers have discovered an intricate network of canals, raised fields, and forest islands that once supported a population estimated at over 100,000 people. This was a primitive society scratching out a living in the wilderness. This was advanced hydraulic engineering that allowed people to thrive in one of the world's most challenging environments. The rivers carried more than people and goods. They carried ideas, languages, and cultures. Ceramic styles spread along these liquid highways, creating artistic traditions that spanned continents. Religious beliefs flowed like water from one community to another, creating shared mythologies that bound distant peoples together. The river system was a living internet, connecting minds across vast distances long before Europeans dreamed of global communication. As the sun sets over the Amazon today, casting long shadows across waters that still follow their ancient courses, one can almost hear the echo of paddle strokes from centuries past. The rivers remember what the land has forgotten, the songs of peoples who understood that water was life, that rivers were roads, and that civilization could flourish in the most unexpected places. Meanwhile, deep in the forest soil, evidence of this riverine civilization continues to emerge, challenging everything we thought we knew about human settlement in the Amazon basin. In the depths of the Amazon, where the soil should be thin and depleted after millennia of tropical rainfall, scientists have discovered something that shouldn't exist: patches of incredibly fertile black earth, known as terra preta, or Amazon dark earth. These soils are so rich, they seem almost magical, supporting agriculture that outproduces even the most advanced modern farming techniques. But perhaps the most extraordinary thing about Terra Preta is that it didn't occur naturally. It was created by human hands centuries ago. Imagine walking through a section of rainforest with the earth beneath. Your feet is as dark as midnight and as rich as chocolate cake. This is Terra Preta, soil so fertile that local farmers seek it out specifically for their crops, knowing that anything planted here will flourish beyond their wildest expectations. The soil teems with microorganisms, retains moisture with extraordinary efficiency, and contains carbon levels that dwarf ordinary Amazonian earth. Scientists studying these remarkable soils have uncovered a mystery that grows deeper with each analysis. Terra Preta isn't just fertile, it's actively self-regenerating. While normal soil would gradually lose its nutrients over time, Terra Preta actually becomes more fertile as the years pass, as if it possesses some form of agricultural immortality. The secret lies in its composition, a careful balance of charcoal, organic matter, and pottery fragments that creates an environment where beneficial microorganisms can thrive indefinitely. The scale of Terra Preta distribution across the Amazon basin suggests something that challenges our understanding of pre-Columbian America. These patches of engineered soil are found scattered across an area larger than France, from the mouth of the Amazon River to its distant tributaries in Peru and Colombia. This wasn't the work of small, scattered tribes struggling to survive in a hostile environment. This was landscape-scale engineering that required sophisticated knowledge of soil chemistry and agricultural science. But who were these master soil engineers? The pottery fragments embedded in Terra Preta provide tantalizing clues. The ceramics are often elaborate and beautiful, decorated with complex geometric patterns, and sometimes depicting human figures with unusual features. Some pieces show evidence of advanced techniques, like controlled firing atmospheres and sophisticated glazing methods. These weren't the crude pots of struggling subsistence farmers. They were the artistic achievements of a culture with time for beauty and experimentation. Carbon dating reveals that Terra Preta was created over many centuries, with some sites showing continuous soil improvement for over 1,000 years. This suggests not just individual brilliance, but cultural continuity knowledge passed down through generations, refined and improved over time. The ancient Amazonians weren't just creating fertile soil, they were creating a legacy that would outlast their civilization by centuries. As researchers continue to map Terra Preta sites across the Amazon, a startling pattern emerges. These patches of engineered earth often occur in clusters, connected by ancient paths and waterways, suggesting planned communities that may have supported populations far larger than anyone previously imagined. The soil itself becomes a map of forgotten cities, each patch of black earth marking a place where human ingenuity once transformed the jungle into a garden. In the 21st century, technology has finally begun to pierce the Amazon's green veil with tools that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations of explorers. LiDAR light detection and ranging sends laser pulses through the forest canopy, creating detailed three-dimensional maps of the ground below. What these scans are revealing defies every assumption about pre-Columbian civilization in the Amazon basin. Picture a scientist in a small aircraft, flying at dawn over what appears to be endless, untouched rainforest. Below the cockpit, a LiDAR scanner fires 150,000 laser pulses per second, each beam penetrating the canopy and bouncing back from the forest floor with precise measurements. The data streams into computers that strip away the digital trees, revealing the naked landscape beneath. And there, emerging from the data like photographs developing in a darkroom, are the unmistakable signatures of human civilization. The ghost cities revealed by LiDAR technology are breathtaking in their scope and sophistication. Geometric earthworks stretch for miles, their perfect circles and precise squares, speaking of mathematical knowledge and coordinated labor. Road networks connect these structures in patterns that suggest careful urban planning, with major thoroughfares linking what must have been significant population centers. Some sites show evidence of massive earthen pyramids, their slopes still visible after centuries of forest growth. In the upper reaches of the Amazon basin, LiDAR has revealed what researchers are calling garden cities, settlements arranged in perfect, geometric patterns with extensive raised field systems for agriculture. These aren't the random clearings of slash-and-burn farmers, but carefully planned communities that integrated living spaces with sophisticated food production systems. The precision of the layouts suggests architectural knowledge that rivals anything built by the Maya or Inca. Perhaps most remarkable are the defensive structures now emerging from the LiDAR data. Massive earthen walls snake through the forest, their zigzag patterns designed to provide overlapping fields of fire for defenders. These fortifications speak of organized warfare and suggest that the peaceful image of pre-Columbian Amazonia may be as much a myth as the idea that it was sparsely populated. The sheer scale of what LiDAR is revealing forces a complete reconsideration of Amazonian history. Some of the structures are enormous earthworks that would have required the coordinated labor of thousands of workers over many years. The geometric precision of the layouts suggests not just mathematical knowledge, but astronomical awareness, with many sites aligned to solstices and equinoxes in ways that mirror the great ceremonial centers of other ancient civilizations. As each new LiDAR survey reveals more hidden structures, archaeologists are realizing that they are not looking at isolated settlements, but at the remnants of an interconnected civilization that may have been among the most sophisticated in the pre-Columbian Americas. The forest has been the ultimate preservative, protecting these ancient cities far better than any museum could, keeping them frozen in time until technology could finally reveal their secrets. But even as LiDAR strips away the forest's disguise, new mysteries emerge. Why were these cities abandoned? What catastrophe could have been so complete that it erased all memory of such magnificent achievements? Something happened in the Amazon between the years 1500 and 1600 that transformed a landscape of cities and gardens into the pristine wilderness that European naturalists would later explore. The silence that fell over the rainforest during this century was so complete that it erased not just civilizations, but the very memory of their existence. What could cause such total devastation that an entire continental civilization simply vanished into myth? The answer may lie in the smallest of invaders' microscopic pathogens that arrived with European contact and spread through indigenous populations like wildfire through dry grass. Smallpox, measles, typhus, and influenza, diseases that Europeans had lived with for millennia, proved catastrophically deadly to people with no inherited immunity. In some regions, mortality rates may have reached 95%, a demographic collapse so severe it defies comprehension. Imagine the great cities of the Amazon in their final days. The geometric earthworks still gleam in the morning sun, but the voices that once filled them have fallen silent. Gardens carefully tended for generations begin to sprout weeds. The sophisticated aquaculture systems that fed thousands gradually fill with silt as no one remains to maintain them. Children's laughter no longer echoes from the ceremonial plazas. The speed of the collapse may have been breathtaking. Disease traveled faster than Europeans themselves, spreading along the same river networks that had once carried trade and culture. A single infected individual arriving at a trading center could set off a chain reaction that would reach communities hundreds of miles away within weeks. Entire populations may have sickened and died before they ever laid eyes on a European face. But disease alone cannot explain the completeness of the erasure. Climate change may have played a crucial role in the Amazon's transformation. The Little Ice Age, which began around 1550, brought cooler temperatures and altered rainfall patterns across the globe. For Amazonian civilizations, precisely adapted to their environment, even small climatic shifts could have been catastrophic. Crops might have failed, fish runs might have changed their patterns, and the delicate balance between human communities and forest ecosystems might have collapsed entirely. As populations crashed and died, the forest began its relentless reclamation. Vines crept over stone walls, roots broke apart, carefully laid foundations, and trees sprouted in plazas where thousands had once gathered. Within a generation, structures that had taken centuries to build were already disappearing beneath green shrouds. The Amazon's incredible fertility, which had supported great civilizations, now worked to erase all evidence of their existence. The survivors faced impossible choices. Small groups scattered into the deep forest, abandoning the cities and intensive agriculture that could no longer be maintained with depleted populations. Knowledge that had been passed down through countless generations was lost when the experts died too quickly to train successors. The sophisticated techniques of terra preta creation, the astronomical alignments of ceremonial centers, the management of complex aquaculture systems, all became forgotten skills as people focused simply on staying alive. By the time European naturalists began serious exploration of the Amazon in the 18th and 19th centuries, the forest had already reclaimed its secrets. What they saw as pristine wilderness was actually a recovering landscape, slowly healing from one of the greatest demographic catastrophes in human history. The silence they interpreted as evidence of sparse population was actually the echo of absence, the quiet of a land still mourning its lost children. Deep in the Brazilian state of Acre, satellite imagery has revealed something that challenges every assumption about ancient Amazonian transportation, a vast network of perfectly straight roads that zigzag across the landscape with mathematical precision. These aren't the meandering paths of people following rivers or natural topography. They are engineered corridors that cut through the forest as if drawn by a cosmic compass. The Z-roads, as researchers have dubbed them, appear to connect major earthwork sites across hundreds of miles. Each segment runs ruler straight for distances that would challenge modern highway engineers, then makes a precise angular turn before continuing in another direction. The pattern repeats across the landscape like a giant geometric puzzle, creating a transportation network that speaks of sophisticated surveying techniques and coordinated construction efforts. What makes these roads even more mysterious is their apparent age. Carbon dating of organic materials found in the road construction suggests they were built over 1,000 years ago, long before any known civilization in the Amazon was thought capable of such large-scale engineering projects. The roads show evidence of careful construction, raised causeways in flood-prone areas, drainage systems to prevent erosion, and stone paving in sections that experienced heavy traffic. The precision of the zigzag pattern has captured the imagination of researchers and theorists alike. Why build roads in such geometrically perfect angles when it would have been easier to follow natural contours? Some archaeologists suggest the pattern may have had ceremonial significance, with each turn aligned to astronomical events or sacred directions. Others propose that the zigzag design was purely practical. Perhaps it allowed for better drainage or provided strategic advantages for travelers who might need to defend themselves along the routes. Local indigenous groups have oral traditions that speak of the straight paths of the ancestors, describing roads that could carry travelers quickly across vast distances. These stories tell of runner messengers who could cover hundreds of miles in days, carrying news and goods along routes that connected distant communities. The zigzag pattern, according to some traditions, was designed to confuse enemies while allowing legitimate travelers to navigate, efficiently using coded knowledge passed down through generations. Recent LiDAR surveys have revealed that the Z-road network is far more extensive than initially believed. The roads appear to connect not just major earthwork sites, but also smaller settlements, creating a communication and transportation grid that may have unified much of the western Amazon basin. Some researchers estimate that the complete network, when it was fully operational, may have included thousands of miles of constructed roadways. The engineering challenges overcome by the Z-road builders would have been formidable. Creating straight roads across the varied Amazonian terrain required sophisticated surveying techniques and massive labor coordination. River crossings were achieved with what appeared to be engineered fords and possibly bridge foundations. In swampy areas, the roads were elevated on earthen platforms that have survived centuries of flooding. As archaeologists continue to map and study the Z-Road network, they're uncovering evidence of associated infrastructure that speaks to the sophistication of ancient Amazonian civilization. Way stations appear at regular intervals, possibly serving as rest stops for travelers or nodes in a communication system. Some sites show evidence of extensive storage facilities, suggesting that the roads facilitated trade networks that may have spanned the entire Amazon basin. The academic world finds itself divided by a growing chasm when it comes to interpreting the emerging evidence of complex Amazonian civilizations. On one side stand mainstream archaeologists, trained in decades of accepted wisdom about tropical environments and their limitations for supporting large populations. On the other side, a new generation of researchers armed with revolutionary technologies and increasingly compelling evidence that challenges everything the textbooks say about pre-Columbian South America. The traditional archaeological establishment has long held that tropical rainforests simply cannot support complex civilizations. The poor soils, they argue, would never sustain intensive agriculture. The disease environment would prevent large population concentrations. The lack of suitable building materials would inhibit monumental architecture. For decades, this environmental determinism shaped how researchers approached Amazonian archaeology, leading them to look for small, scattered settlements rather than sophisticated urban centers. Dr. Anna Roosevelt of the Field Museum in Chicago stands as one of the pioneers challenging this orthodox view. Her excavations on Mariara Island revealed elaborate pottery and massive earthworks that speak of complex societies flourishing in the Amazon estuary over 1,000 years ago. Her work demonstrated that the Amazon could indeed support sophisticated cultures, but even her groundbreaking discoveries were initially met with skepticism from colleagues who couldn't reconcile the evidence with their theoretical frameworks. The skeptics raised legitimate concerns about the new interpretations of Amazonian archaeology. They question whether the earthworks revealed by LiDAR are truly evidence of cities or merely natural formations misidentified by enthusiastic researchers. They point out that correlation doesn't equal causation just because terra preta and earthworks exist in the same regions doesn't necessarily mean they were created by urban civilizations. Some argue that the geometric patterns could be explained by smaller, less complex societies engaged in ceremonial activities rather than urban planning. But the alternative theorists are building an increasingly compelling case. They point to the mathematical precision of the earthworks, the sophisticated soil engineering of terra preta, and the massive scale of the road networks as evidence that cannot be explained by small, dispersed populations. They argue that mainstream archaeology has been blinded by its own preconceptions, unable to see the forest for the trees, quite literally in this case. The debate has been further complicated by the entrance of researchers from outside traditional archaeology. Anthropologists, soil scientists, climatologists, and even astronomers are bringing their expertise to bear on Amazonian mysteries, often reaching conclusions that challenge archaeological orthodoxy. Their interdisciplinary approach has revealed connections and patterns that single-discipline studies might have missed. Some alternative researchers have gone further, suggesting that Amazonian civilizations may have been far more advanced than even the new evidence indicates. They propose that the geometric earthworks show knowledge of advanced mathematics and astronomy, comparable to other great ancient civilizations. A few have even suggested connections to global seafaring cultures or advanced technologies that have been lost to history. The mainstream response to such speculative theories is often dismissive, but the dismissal itself reveals something important about the state of Amazonian archaeology. The field is in transition, caught between old paradigms that no longer fit the evidence and new theories that seem almost too extraordinary to believe. The tension between skepticism and wonder, between established methodologies and revolutionary discoveries, drives the field forward even as it divides researchers into competing camps. As more evidence emerges from the forest floor, the debate continues to evolve. Each new LiDAR survey, each soil analysis, each radiocarbon date adds another piece to a puzzle that grows more complex rather than simpler with each discovery. The Amazon may yet force archaeology to rewrite its fundamental assumptions about what is possible in tropical environments and how sophisticated ancient civilizations could become. In the flickering light of countless fires for thousands of years, the indigenous peoples of the Amazon have told stories that weave together the natural and supernatural worlds into tapestries of meaning that outsiders have often dismissed as primitive superstition. But what if these ancient narratives contain echoes of historical truth, memories of real civilizations encoded in the language of myth and preserved across centuries by oral tradition? The most persistent of these legends speaks of the jaguar people shapeshifters, who could take the form of the forest as most powerful predator at will. These beings, according to tradition, built great cities in the deep jungle where humans and jaguars lived as equals. They were master builders who could move massive stones without apparent effort, astronomers who read the future in the movements of stars, and shamans who possessed knowledge of plants and medicines that modern science is only beginning to rediscover. In the mythology of the Yanomami people, the jaguar ancestors created the first gardens in the forest, teaching humans how to cultivate the land without destroying its essential wildness. These divine gardeners knew the secrets of making soil so fertile it would feed future generations, forever a description that sounds remarkably similar to what modern scientists have discovered about terra preta. Could these myths be cultural memories of real agricultural innovators whose techniques seem so advanced they were attributed to supernatural beings? The Shipibo people of the Peruvian Amazon tell of the Painted Ones, beings who decorated their cities with geometric patterns that matched the designs they saw in visions induced by sacred plants. These patterns, still reproduced in Shipibo art today, show mathematical relationships and symmetries that mirror the layouts of the geometric earthworks now being revealed by LiDAR technology. The intersection of consciousness-altering experiences and architectural precision suggests a culture where spirituality and engineering were intimately connected. Further east, the legends of the Tupi peoples describe great serpent cities that could appear and disappear at will, their coiled structures following the meandering paths of rivers. Archaeological evidence increasingly suggests that many Amazonian settlements were indeed built along waterways in patterns that from above would resemble massive serpents. Artificial islands connected by canals and causeways that create snake-like configurations across the landscape. The mythological record also preserves memories of catastrophic change. Many Amazonian cultures tell versions of a great silence that fell over the forest when the sky people departed and the animal nations retreated into hiding. These stories often describe a time when the relationship between humans and nature was broken, forcing survivors to adopt simpler ways of life. The mythological timeline of this great silence corresponds remarkably well with the archaeological evidence for population collapse in the 16th century. What makes these myths particularly intriguing is their consistency across cultures separated by thousands of miles and linguistic barriers. The jaguar-human transformation appears in traditions from Colombia to Brazil, always associated with advanced knowledge and lost cities. The geometric patterns that appear in visionary experiences are remarkably similar, whether reported by shamans in Peru or Venezuela. This suggests either common origins or shared experiences that transcended cultural boundaries. Modern ethnobotanists working with traditional healers in the Amazon often report being shown plant medicines and preparation techniques that seem to require sophisticated understanding of chemistry and pharmacology. When asked about the origins of this knowledge, Healers typically respond that it was taught to their ancestors by the forest spirits or animal teachers. Could these supernatural teachers have been members of advanced human societies whose scientific knowledge was so far beyond that of later peoples that it could only be explained in mythological terms? The snake-like patterns of ancient settlements revealed by aerial photography echo the visions of cosmic serpents described by shamans throughout the Amazon. The astronomical alignments of earthworks match the celestial navigation techniques attributed to mythological sky peoples. The advanced soil engineering of Terra Preta mirrors the miraculous fertility attributed to divine gardeners in oral traditions. As researchers delve deeper into Amazonian mythology, they rediscovering that what European observers dismissed as primitive superstition may actually be one of humanity's oldest and most sophisticated information storage systems, a way of preserving scientific and historical knowledge across centuries, using the powerful mnemonic devices of story, symbol, and ritual. From the air, they appear like messages written by giants' enormous geometric patterns etched into the Amazon basin with a precision that defies explanation. These geoglyphs, as archaeologists call them, are only visible from above, their true scope hidden from ground-level observers by the forest canopy. Circles within squares, perfect spirals, complex polygons connected by ruler straight lines, the patterns stretch across hundreds of square miles, creating what may be the largest artistic canvas ever created by human hands. The first geoglyphs were discovered in the early 1970s when deforestation in the Brazilian state of Acre began to reveal their outlines. But as satellite imagery became more sophisticated and LiDAR technology penetrated deeper into uncleared forest, the true extent of these massive earthworks became apparent. Researchers now estimate that over 450 distinct geometric sites exist in the western Amazon alone, with new discoveries being made regularly as technology improves and search areas expand. The Nazca lines of Peru, long considered the pinnacle of ancient geoglyph creation, pale in comparison to what has been found in the Amazon. While the Nazca patterns cover about 450 square kilometers, the Amazonian geoglyphs span over 13,000 square kilometers, an area larger than Qatar. The precision of construction rivals or exceeds that of the more famous Peruvian lines, with circles achieving near-perfect roundness and straight lines maintaining their angles across miles of varied terrain. What makes the Amazonian geoglyphs even more mysterious than their Peruvian cousins is their age and context. Carbon dating suggests that many were created over 2,000 years ago, making them among the oldest large-scale earthworks in the Americas. Unlike the Nazca lines, which were created in a desert environment where they could easily be preserved, the Amazonian geoglyphs were built in a tropical rainforest that should have erased them within decades. Their survival suggests that they were continuously maintained by generations of dedicated caretakers. The geometric precision of these earthworks implies mathematical knowledge that challenges assumptions about pre-Columbian education and scientific understanding. Many of the circular geoglyphs achieve roundness ratios that would be impressive even by modern engineering standards. The square and rectangular enclosures show understanding of right angles and parallel lines that speaks of sophisticated surveying techniques. Some of the more complex polygons incorporate advanced geometric principles that were informally described in European mathematics until the medieval period. The purposes of these massive earthworks remain hotly debated. Some researchers suggest they were ceremonial centers where large gatherings could take place during religious festivals or astronomical events. The geometric precision and astronomical alignments of many sites support this interpretation. Others propose that they were defensive structures, with the raised earthen walls providing protection for populations within the enclosures. The discovery of what appear to be entrance causeways and internal divisions at some sites lends credence to this theory. A third interpretation suggests that the geoglyphs were agricultural installations on a massive scale landscape level engineering projects designed to manage water flow, soil fertility, and crop production across huge areas. The integration of many geoglyph sites with terra preta deposits and ancient canal systems supports this functional interpretation. Perhaps these weren't just ceremonial or defensive structures, but working landscapes that supported large populations through intensive managed agriculture. The astronomical connections of many geoglyphs add another layer to the mystery. Computer analyses have revealed that numerous sites are aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and the rising and setting positions of significant stars and planets. Some researchers suggest that the geoglyphs functioned as enormous astronomical calendars, allowing ancient Amazonians to track seasonal cycles with remarkable precision. The integration of ceremonial, agricultural, and astronomical functions would have created multi-purpose installations that served the complex needs of sophisticated societies. Recent discoveries have revealed that many geoglyphs are connected by the same road networks that link other major archaeological sites across the Amazon. This suggests that they weren't isolated installations, but parts of a larger, coordinated system of monuments and infrastructure that may have unified much of the Western Amazon basin under shared cultural and perhaps political systems. As researchers continue to study these remarkable earthworks, they're uncovering evidence of construction techniques that required massive labor coordination and advanced planning. The sheer scale of earth movement involved in creating some of the larger geoglyphs would have required the coordinated effort of thousands of workers over many years, suggesting social organization and project management capabilities that rival those of any ancient civilization. The Amazon rainforest exists in a delicate dance with the planet's climate systems, its vast canopy both responding to and influencing weather patterns that stretch across continents. Throughout human history, this dance has occasionally stumbled, and when it does, entire civilizations can vanish in the space of a generation. The story of the Amazon's lost cities cannot be told without understanding the climatic catastrophes that may have brought them to their knees. Deep in the sediment layers of Amazonian lakes lies a record of environmental change that reads like a chronicle of civilizational rise and fall. Scientists drilling core samples from these lake beds have discovered evidence of massive droughts that occurred with cyclical regularity, each one capable of transforming the forest into a desiccated shadow of its former self. During these megadroughts, rivers that normally flow as mighty torrents dwindle to chains of isolated pools, and vast areas of forest die back, leaving behind only the hardiest species. One such megadrought occurred around 1000 CE, lasting for decades and fundamentally altering the Amazonian landscape. Archaeological evidence suggests that this climatic catastrophe coincided with the abandonment of many major earthwork sites and the apparent collapse of several regional cultures. For civilizations that had spent centuries perfecting intensive agriculture and complex water management systems, the prolonged absence of reliable rainfall would have been catastrophic. But drought was not the only climatic threat facing Amazonian civilizations. The forest also experienced periods of extreme flooding that could be equally devastating. When El Niño events coincided with other climatic anomalies, the result could be years of unprecedented rainfall that turned vast areas of the Amazon basin into temporary inland seas. Archaeological sites show evidence of massive flood deposits that buried settlements and forced populations to abandon low-lying areas. The most sophisticated Amazonian societies developed ingenious adaptations to these climatic extremes. The raised field systems found throughout the basin weren't just agricultural innovations. They were climate resilience technologies that allowed crops to survive both floods and droughts. During wet periods, the raised platforms kept plants above floodwaters. During dry periods, the water-filled canals between the fields provided irrigation and maintained local humidity levels. However, these adaptations required constant maintenance and coordinated management across large areas. As populations declined due to disease or warfare, the labor-intensive infrastructure that made civilizations resilient to climate change became impossible to maintain. Without human intervention, the raised fields quickly deteriorated. Canals filled with sediment, and the sophisticated water management systems that had supported thousands of people became useless tangles of overgrown earth. The Little Ice Age, which began around 1550, brought particularly challenging conditions to the Amazon. Cooler global temperatures altered precipitation patterns and may have triggered more frequent and severe droughts in some regions, while causing increased flooding in others. For Amazonian civilizations already weakened by disease and social disruption, these climatic stresses may have been the final blow that pushed them past the point of recovery. Modern climate research suggests that the Amazon basin is particularly vulnerable to rapid environmental changes because of its role in global weather systems. The forest generates much of its own rainfall through evapotranspiration, creating a self-reinforcing cycle that maintains the wet conditions necessary for tropical rainforest ecosystems. But this system has tipping points once deforestation or drought passes a certain threshold. The feedback loops can reverse, potentially transforming vast areas of forest into savanna in remarkably short periods. Ancient Amazonian societies may have understood these environmental vulnerabilities better than we give them credit for. The geometric earthworks and sophisticated agricultural systems they created show evidence of landscape-scale planning that took long-term environmental stability into account. Their terraced hillsides, artificial forest islands, and managed wetlands represent attempts to create resilient ecosystems that could weather climatic extremes. The collapse of these civilizations offers sobering lessons for our own climate-threatened world. Even societies with sophisticated environmental knowledge and advanced adaptation technologies can be overwhelmed when climate change coincides with other stresses like disease, warfare, or social disruption. The silence that fell over the Amazon in the 16th century reminds us that civilizational collapse is not a gradual decline, but often a sudden plunge from complexity to simplicity, from abundance to abandonment. In a remote corner of the Brazilian Amazon, where the forest floor is carpeted with centuries of fallen leaves and the air hangs heavy with moisture and mystery, local collectors have been finding strange stone figurines for decades. These small sculptures, no larger than a human hand, depict beings that don't quite look human: elongated heads, large eyes, and clothing or ornamentation that seems to belong to no known Amazonian culture. The figurines appear to have been carved from local stone using sophisticated techniques that required considerable skill and specialized tools. Each piece shows evidence of careful planning and execution, with details that speak of artistic traditions and cultural meanings that are now lost to time. Some depict figures in elaborate headdresses that suggest high social status or religious significance. Others show beings engaged in activities that are difficult to interpret, holding objects that might be tools, weapons, or ceremonial items. What makes these figurines particularly intriguing is their distribution pattern. They have been found scattered across a wide area of the Amazon basin, always in locations associated with other archaeological evidence like terra preta deposits or earthwork sites. This suggests that they weren't random artistic experiments, but part of a broader cultural tradition that extended across large regions and possibly long periods of time. The style of the figurines is unlike anything found in other parts of pre-Columbian South America. While Andean cultures produced elaborate stone sculptures and ceramic traditions throughout the Amazon are well documented, these particular pieces seem to represent a distinct artistic tradition that developed independently in the rainforest. The anatomical proportions depicted in the figurines, particularly the elongated heads, don't match those of known Amazonian populations, leading to speculation about their origins and meaning. Some researchers have suggested that the figurines might represent shamanic visions or spiritual beings rather than actual people. The altered proportions and otherworldly appearance could be artistic representations of the transformed states of consciousness achieved through the use of psychoactive plants that are central to many Amazonian spiritual traditions. The large eyes and elongated heads might symbolize enhanced perception and wisdom associated with spiritual enlightenment. Local indigenous groups in the regions where the figurines are found often have oral traditions that speak of the old people who lived in the forest before their own ancestors arrived. These stories describe beings who were master craftsmen and possessed knowledge of stone carving, metallurgy, and other technologies that current populations don't possess. While such stories might typically be dismissed as mythology, the existence of the figurines suggests that they might preserve memories of real cultural groups that once inhabited the region. The figurines also raise questions about the technological capabilities of ancient Amazonian cultures. Creating such detailed stone sculptures would have required specialized knowledge of stone selection, carving techniques, and tool manufacture that suggests more sophisticated technological traditions that are usually associated with tropical forest societies. The precision of the carving and the durability of the pieces indicate that their creators possessed advanced craftsmanship skills and possibly organized workshop traditions where such knowledge could be preserved and transmitted. Carbon dating of organic materials found in association with the figurines suggests ages ranging from 800 to 1,500 years, placing their creation during the height of Amazonian civilization development. This timing coincides with the period when the great earthworks were being constructed and terra preta agriculture was at its most sophisticated, suggesting that the figurines might be products of the same advanced societies that created these other remarkable achievements. The mystery deepens when the figurines are considered alongside similar artifacts found in other parts of the world. The elongated head motif appears in ancient art from Egypt, Easter Island, and various other locations where it has been interpreted as everything from artistic convention to evidence of ancient contact between distant cultures. Whether the Amazonian figurines represent an independent development of this artistic theme or connection to broader ancient traditions remains an open question that continues to intrigue researchers and theorists alike. High above the Amazon canopy, a revolution in archaeology is taking place at the speed of light. Sophisticated aircraft equipped with LiDAR technology sweep back and forth across the forest, their laser scanners penetrating the green veil that has hidden ancient secrets for centuries. In laboratories hundreds of miles away, powerful computers process the resulting data, stripping away the digital forest to reveal landscapes that human eyes haven't seen clearly for generations. The process seems almost magical in its precision. LiDAR systems fire millions of laser pulses per second, measuring the time it takes for each beam to bounce back from various surfaces below. Some pulses reflect off leaves and branches in the canopy, others penetrate deeper to hit the forest floor, and still others bounce off structures and features that lie buried beneath centuries of vegetation and soil. Sophisticated algorithms sort through this three-dimensional point cloud data, creating incredibly detailed maps of both the forest above and the archaeological landscape below. What emerges from these digital excavations would have astounded earlier generations of archaeologists. Entire city layouts appear with startling clarity: roads, plazas, residential areas, and monumental structures arranged in patterns that speak of careful urban planning. The geometric precision of these settlements rivals that of contemporary civilizations in other parts of the world, challenging every assumption about the sophistication of pre-Columbian Amazonian societies. Dr. Heiko Prumers of the German Archaeological Institute has led some of the most groundbreaking LiDAR surveys in the Bolivian Amazon, revealing what he describes as an entirely lost chapter of human history. His team's scans have uncovered evidence of settlements that may have housed tens of thousands of people, connected by road networks that stretch for hundreds of miles. These aren't the scattered villages that textbooks describe, but genuine urban centers that suggest complex political and economic organization. The invisible cities revealed by LiDAR technology show remarkable diversity in their layouts and construction techniques. Some appear to be defensive in nature, with massive earthen walls and strategic placement on elevated terrain. Others seem designed primarily for ceremony or administration, with large central plazas surrounded by smaller structures that might have served as residences for elites or religious specialists. Still others appear to be primarily economic centers, with evidence of extensive workshop areas and storage facilities. One of the most remarkable discoveries has been the integration of these urban centers with sophisticated agricultural systems. LiDAR scans reveal that many cities were surrounded by vast networks of raised fields, canals, and forest gardens that would have been capable of supporting much larger populations than the surrounding natural environment could sustain. These weren't cities imposed upon the landscape, but communities that evolved in harmony with their environment while dramatically enhancing its productivity. The road systems connecting these invisible cities are perhaps even more impressive than the settlements themselves. Straight causeways stretch across varied terrain, maintaining their alignment with engineering precision that would challenge modern construction crews. These roads often incorporate sophisticated drainage systems, bridges across waterways, and rest stations at regular intervals. The network appears to have connected communities across vast distances, creating communication and trade links that unified much of the Amazon basin. LiDAR technology has also revealed the true scale of the earthwork complexes scattered throughout the forest. What appeared from ground level to be isolated mounds or clearings are now revealed to be components of massive architectural complexes. Some earthwork sites cover areas larger than many modern cities, with geometric patterns that required coordinated planning and construction efforts involving thousands of workers. The data from LiDAR surveys is revolutionizing archaeological fieldwork in the Amazon. Instead of spending years searching for potential sites through ground survey, researchers can now identify promising locations from aerial data and focus their limited resources on the most significant discoveries. This targeted approach has accelerated the pace of discovery and allowed archaeologists to tackle sites that would have been impossible to locate using traditional methods. But perhaps the most important contribution of LiDAR mapping has been to demonstrate the interconnectedness of Amazonian archaeological sites. Rather than isolated settlements scattered randomly through the forest, the technology reveals a coordinated landscape of cities, roads, agricultural systems, and ceremonial centers that functioned as an integrated whole. The invisible cities of the Amazon weren't just individual achievements, but components of a civilization that may have been among the most sophisticated in the pre-Columbian Americas. Standing in what appears to be pristine rainforest, surrounded by towering trees and the symphony of wildlife that fills every corner of the Amazonian soundscape, it is difficult to imagine that this wilderness might actually be one of humanity's greatest gardens, a managed landscape shaped by thousands of years of careful cultivation and deliberate design. But mounting evidence suggests that much of what we consider natural Amazon rainforest is actually the product of sophisticated agricultural engineering that transformed an entire continent into a productive paradise. The first clues to this radical reinterpretation of Amazonian ecology came from studies of forest composition. Botanists noticed that the species distribution in many areas didn't match what would be expected from natural succession patterns. Useful plants, fruits, nuts, medicinal species, and materials for construction appeared far more frequently than random natural processes would produce. The forests seemed to have been edited, with valuable species encouraged and less useful ones suppressed through generations of human management. Dr. Charles Clement of Brazil, as National Institute for Amazonian Research, has spent decades documenting this anthropogenic forest, identifying areas where human influence has fundamentally altered the natural plant communities. His research suggests that as much as 12% of the Amazon basin consists of these managed forests, representing an area larger than France that has been shaped by human agricultural practices. These aren't small garden plots, but landscape-scale modifications that required coordinated planning and management across generations. The evidence for deliberate forest management extends beyond simple species composition to the physical structure of the forest itself. Many areas show signs of fire management techniques that were used to maintain park-like conditions under the forest canopy. These controlled burns would have eliminated undergrowth while preserving valuable trees, creating forests that were easier to travel through and more productive for human use. The patterns of terra preta distribution often correspond to these managed forest areas, suggesting that soil improvement and forest management were integrated technologies. Archaeological evidence supports the garden hypothesis with discoveries of elaborate irrigation systems, terraced hillsides, and artificial forest islands that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of forest ecology. These modifications weren't random experiments, but components of a comprehensive land management system that enhanced the forest's natural productivity while maintaining its ecological integrity. The scale of these modifications suggests that pre-Columbian Amazonians didn't just live in the forest, they redesigned it. The raised field systems found throughout the Amazon basin represent perhaps the most impressive example of landscape-scale agricultural engineering. These artificially constructed growing areas, elevated above flood levels and connected by networks of canals, could have supported agricultural production that exceeded the output of modern industrial farming. But they were more than just farms. They were integrated ecosystems that provided habitat for fish, birds, and other wildlife while producing food for human populations. The integration of agriculture with forest management created what researchers now call forest gardens productive, landscapes that combined the stability of natural ecosystems with the productivity of intensive agriculture. These systems were incredibly sophisticated, incorporating multiple layers of production from ground crops to canopy fruits, while maintaining the biodiversity and ecological services that keep tropical ecosystems functioning. The result was a landscape that could support large human populations while remaining environmentally sustainable. The concept of the Amazon as a garden also helps explain the rapid forest recovery that occurred after the demographic collapse of the 16th century. If much of the forest was already managed, its transition back to wild conditions would have been relatively rapid once human maintenance ceased. The forest didn't need to be created from scratch. It simply needed to resume natural processes that had been carefully guided and enhanced by human intervention. This reinterpretation of Amazonian ecology has profound implications for conservation and environmental policy. If the pristine forest that European naturalists encountered was actually a recovering garden, then the idea of preserving untouched wilderness becomes problematic. Instead, conservation efforts might need to focus on understanding and potentially restoring the sustainable management practices that maintained forest productivity for thousands of years. The garden hypothesis also challenges assumptions about the relationship between human societies and tropical environments. Rather than being limited by environmental constraints, pre-Columbian Amazonians apparently overcame those constraints through sophisticated ecological engineering that enhanced rather than degraded their environment. They created landscapes that were simultaneously natural and artificial, wild and cultivated, demonstrating possibilities for human-environment relationships that modern societies are only beginning to understand. In the most remote reaches of the Amazon basin, where satellite imagery reveals unbroken green canopy and no roads penetrate the forest depths, small groups of indigenous people continue to live much as their ancestors did centuries ago. These uncontacted tribes, estimated to number fewer than 10,000 individuals, scattered across dozens of groups, represent living connections to the pre-Columbian world that was lost to disease and conquest 500 years ago. FNAI, Brazil's National Indigenous Peoples Foundation, maintains strict policies protecting these isolated communities from outside contact, having learned from tragic historical experience that such encounters typically result in devastating disease outbreaks among populations with no immunity to common pathogens. But aerial surveillance flights occasionally capture glimpses of their settlements. Traditional longhouses, arranged in forest clearings, garden plots carved from the jungle, and sometimes the inhabitants themselves looking up at the aircraft with expressions that might be curiosity, fear, or simply acknowledgement of the outside world they choose to avoid. These brief encounters provide tantalizing hints about how Amazonian societies might have functioned before European contact. The uncontacted groups maintain sophisticated technologies for forest survival, including plant-based medicines, complex hunting, and fishing techniques, and agricultural practices that allow them to thrive in environments that would challenge even experienced modern survivalists. Their continued existence demonstrates that the Amazon can indeed support human populations without external inputs or technologies. The agricultural practices of uncontacted groups, observed from a respectful distance by researchers, show remarkable similarities to the techniques that archaeologists believe were used by the ancient civilizations that created terra preta and geometric earthworks. They practice rotational farming that maintains soil fertility, create polyculture gardens that mimic natural forest ecosystems, and use controlled burning to manage forest composition. These aren't primitive survival techniques, but sophisticated land management practices that have been refined over generations. Anthropologist Kim Hill, who has studied recently contacted Amazonian groups, describes knowledge systems of extraordinary complexity and precision. Tribal members can identify hundreds of plant species and their uses, predict weather patterns from subtle environmental cues, and navigate vast areas of seemingly uniform forest using landmarks invisible to outsiders. This accumulated knowledge represents thousands of years of careful observation and experimentation, passed down through oral traditions that function as libraries of ecological information. The social organization of these groups also provides insights into how larger pre-Columbian societies might have functioned. Despite their small size, uncontacted tribes maintain complex kinship systems, ceremonial traditions, and decision-making processes that allow them to coordinate group activities and resolve conflicts without formal government structures. These systems suggest that Amazonian societies developed sophisticated social technologies that could potentially scale up to manage much larger populations. The territories maintained by uncontacted groups often encompass areas much larger than their immediate needs would require, suggesting an understanding of landscape-scale resource management that mirrors the extensive influence of ancient Amazonian civilizations. They maintain forest gardens scattered across their territory, creating a network of productive sites that can be rotated and managed over time. This pattern of distributed resource management might explain how ancient civilizations could support large populations while maintaining environmental sustainability. Recent analysis of forest areas around uncontacted settlements has revealed the same kinds of species enrichment and soil improvements that archaeologists associate with historical Amazonian civilizations. The uncontacted groups appear to be actively managing their forest environment, encouraging useful species, and suppressing less valuable ones through techniques that create the anthropogenic forests that researchers are discovering throughout the Amazon basin. The linguistic diversity among uncontacted groups hints at the cultural complexity that may have existed in pre-Columbian Amazonia. Each isolated community speaks its own language or dialect, often unintelligible to neighboring groups, suggesting that the Amazon once hosted hundreds of distinct cultures with their own knowledge systems, artistic traditions, and social organizations. The geometric earthworks and other archaeological evidence of cultural unity across large areas of the basin become even more remarkable when viewed against this backdrop of linguistic and cultural diversity. Perhaps most importantly, the continued existence of uncontacted tribes demonstrates the resilience of Amazonian cultural traditions. Despite centuries of external pressure and the collapse of the larger civilizations that once flourished in the region, these small groups have maintained their independence and their traditional ways of life. They represent not just survivors of a demographic catastrophe, but custodians of knowledge systems that may hold keys to understanding humanity's most sustainable relationship with tropical forest environments. Their example suggests that the sophisticated civilizations that once flourished in the Amazon didn't simply vanish without a trace. Instead, they may have survived in modified form among the scattered indigenous communities that retreated into the forest's deepest refuges, carrying with them fragments of the knowledge and traditions that created some of the pre-Columbian world's most remarkable achievements. Deep in the Peruvian Amazon, where the forest grows so thick that GPS signals struggle to penetrate the canopy, and the air hangs heavy with the perfume of countless flowering plants, flows one of the natural world's most extraordinary and terrifying wonders. The Shanay Timpishka, known to locals as the river that boils, runs at temperatures that can reach 93 degrees Celsius, hot enough to kill any living thing that falls into its waters within seconds. Geologist Andres Russo first heard about this river from his grandfather, who spoke of it as a sacred place where the spirits of the forest came to bathe. For years, Russo assumed it was merely another indigenous legend, perhaps inspired by some warm springs or exaggerated through generations of storytelling. But when he finally made the arduous journey into the remote Mayantuyacu region, he discovered that reality exceeded even the most fantastical stories. The boiling river stretches for over 4 miles through dense rainforest, its waters so hot that steam rises continuously from its surface, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that seems to blur the boundaries between the physical and spiritual worlds. The riverbank is lined with scalded earth, where the superheated water has killed all vegetation, creating bare patches that look like wounds in the otherwise lush forest landscape. What makes the boiling river scientifically extraordinary is its location. Typically, geothermal features like hot springs occur near active volcanoes or tectonic plate boundaries, but the Shanay Timpishka flows hundreds of miles away from the nearest volcanic activity. The heat appears to come from deep underground sources that tap into the Earth's geothermal energy in ways that geologists are still struggling to understand. The river represents a hydrogeological anomaly that challenges conventional understanding of how geothermal systems work. Local Ashwar people consider the boiling river to be the dwelling place of Yakuruna, the powerful water spirit who controls the rivers and all aquatic life. According to their traditions, the river has been sacred for thousands of years, serving as a place where shamans come to receive visions and communicate with the spirit world. The extreme heat is believed to be a manifestation of spiritual power, a physical expression of the supernatural forces that govern the natural world. The shamanic traditions surrounding the boiling river describe it as a portal between worlds, a place where the boundaries between the physical and spiritual realms become thin enough for specially trained individuals to cross between them. Healing ceremonies conducted near the river are said to be particularly powerful, with the steam and heat enhancing the effects of traditional plant medicines and allowing deeper spiritual experiences than would be possible elsewhere. Archaeological evidence suggests that the area around the boiling river has been considered sacred for much longer than current indigenous traditions indicate. Pottery fragments and stone tools found in the region show artistic styles and manufacturing techniques that appear to be much older than those associated with current tribal groups. The extreme conditions created by the boiling river have also produced unique ecological adaptations. Despite the scalding temperatures, certain thermophilic bacteria thrive in the hot water, creating colorful bacterial mats that paint the riverbed in brilliant oranges, yellows, and greens. These microorganisms represent some of the most heat-tolerant life forms on Earth, potentially offering insights into how life might exist in extreme environments on other planets. Russo's scientific studies of the river have revealed that its temperature varies seasonally and even daily, suggesting that the geothermal source feeding it is more complex than initially believed. During the dry season, when water levels are low, temperatures can reach their maximum, while increased rainfall during wet periods can cool the river slightly. This variability adds another layer to the river's mystery and has important implications for understanding the geothermal processes that create such anomalous features. The boiling river also raises questions about other unusual natural phenomena that might exist in the Amazon's unexplored regions. If such an extraordinary geothermal feature can exist unnoticed by science for so long, what other natural wonders might be hidden in the forest's depths? The discovery reminds us that despite centuries of exploration and modern satellite mapping, the Amazon still holds secrets that can challenge our understanding of what's possible in the natural world. For the indigenous peoples who have lived with the boiling river for generations, its scientific explanation doesn't diminish its spiritual significance. The river remains a sacred place where the earth's hidden powers manifest in ways that inspire awe and demand respect. A reminder that some natural phenomena transcend purely scientific understanding to touch something deeper in human consciousness. Hidden beneath the green canopy of the Amazon rainforest lie the remnants of engineering projects that rival the greatest achievements of any ancient civilization. These are not the random clearings and simple structures that textbooks once attributed to primitive forest peoples, but sophisticated infrastructure projects that speak of advanced technical knowledge, massive labor coordination, and planning horizons that extended across generations. The scale of Amazonian engineering becomes apparent when viewed from above through satellite imagery and LiDAR scanning. Across the basin, researchers have identified thousands of miles of artificial canals, some straight as arrows and others following carefully calculated curves that optimize water flow and minimize erosion. These waterways aren't natural rivers, but engineered channels that were designed to drain swamps, irrigate crops, and provide transportation corridors through otherwise impassable terrain. In the Llanos de Mojos region of Bolivia, archaeologists have documented one of the most impressive hydraulic engineering systems ever discovered in the Americas. The ancient inhabitants created over 6,000 artificial forest islands, connected them with causeways that remain elevated above floodwaters, and surrounded the entire network with canals that could be used for both transportation and fish farming. This integrated landscape modification covered over 20,000 square kilometers, an area larger than Israel, and would have required the coordinated labor of tens of thousands of workers over many decades. The precision of Amazonian earthwork construction suggests engineering knowledge that should not have existed in societies that lacked metal tools, wheeled vehicles, and draft animals. Yet somehow, working with stone tools and human labor alone, Amazonian engineers created earthworks with geometric precision that rivals modern construction standards. The circular earthworks near Acre, Brazil, achieve roundness ratios of 99.7%, a level of precision that would be challenging to achieve, even with modern surveying equipment. The road systems built by Amazonian engineers demonstrate understanding of principles that were informally described in European engineering texts until centuries later. The raised causeways incorporate sophisticated drainage systems that prevent erosion and maintain structural integrity through decades of seasonal flooding. The roads show evidence of careful grading to minimize slope angles, strategic placement of rest stops and supply depots, and integration with the broader landscape in ways that suggest comprehensive regional planning. Perhaps most impressive are the fish farming systems that Amazonian engineers created throughout the basin. These aren't simple fish ponds, but complex aquaculture installations that integrated fish production with agriculture, flood control, and transportation infrastructure. The systems include artificial spawning areas, nursery ponds for juvenile fish, and harvesting weirs that allowed controlled extraction of mature fish while maintaining breeding populations. Some of these installations covered hundreds of acres and would have been capable of producing protein for thousands of people. The agricultural engineering achievements of pre-Columbian Amazonians were equally sophisticated. The raised field systems that covered vast areas of the basin incorporated understanding of soil chemistry, hydrology, and crop rotation that rivals modern agricultural science. The fields were precisely engineered to maintain optimal soil moisture levels, regardless of seasonal variations in rainfall, while the associated canal systems provided irrigation during dry periods and drainage during floods. Amazonian engineers also demonstrated remarkable skill in modifying natural landscapes for human use without destroying their ecological integrity. The forest islands created throughout the basin weren't simply cleared areas but carefully designed environments that enhanced rather than replaced natural forest ecosystems. These artificial islands incorporated multiple levels of vegetation, from ground crops to canopy fruits, creating productive landscapes that supported both human populations and wildlife. The integration of different engineering systems reveals perhaps the most impressive aspect of Amazonian technical achievement. Roads connected cities to agricultural areas, which were linked to fish farms, which fed into river transportation networks, which connected to ritual and ceremonial centers. This wasn't piecemeal development, but comprehensive regional planning that treated entire watersheds as integrated systems to be managed for maximum productivity and sustainability. The tools and techniques used by Amazonian engineers remain partially mysterious. Working without metal tools, they somehow moved millions of tons of earth with remarkable precision. They created perfectly straight lines across varied terrain, maintained consistent angles and proportions across massive construction projects, and achieved levels of coordination that suggest sophisticated organizational systems and possibly mathematical knowledge that was never recorded in permanent form. Recent discoveries continue to reveal new aspects of Amazonian engineering prowess. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have identified what appear to be underground aqueduct systems that channeled water across long distances. Magnetic surveys have revealed the footprints of massive wooden structures that may have been bridges, cranes, or other construction equipment that has long since rotted away in the tropical climate. The legacy of these lost engineers lives on in the landscapes they created. Many of their earthworks continue to function centuries after their abandonment, with raised fields still providing superior growing conditions and ancient canals still channeling floodwaters in predictable patterns. Their engineering solutions were so well adapted to Amazonian conditions that they remain more effective than many modern alternatives, suggesting that contemporary development might benefit from understanding and incorporating the techniques developed by these forgotten masters of tropical engineering. As twilight descends over the geometric earthworks of the Amazon basin, transforming the ancient sites into silhouettes against the star-filled sky, a remarkable pattern becomes visible to those who know how to look. Many of these massive constructions, built with such precise geometry that they seem almost mathematical in their perfection, align themselves with celestial events in ways that reveal a sophisticated understanding of astronomy that challenges every assumption about pre-Columbian scientific knowledge. The discovery of astronomical alignments in Amazonian earthworks began almost by accident, when archaeologists using computer modeling to analyze site layouts noticed that many of the geometric patterns seemed to point toward specific positions on the horizon. Further investigation revealed that these alignments corresponded to the rising and setting positions of the sun during solstices and equinoxes, the appearance of bright stars and planets, and even more complex celestial phenomena like the precession of stellar positions over long periods of time. At the Fazenda Colorada site in Acre, Brazil, researchers have documented earthworks that function as a massive astronomical calendar. The circular and square enclosures are positioned so that standing in the center of one geometric figure, an observer can sight along the walls of adjacent structures to mark the exact moments of seasonal transitions. During the winter solstice, The sun rises directly over one earthwork wall, while the summer solstice sunrise appears over a different alignment. The spring and autumn equinoxes are marked by solar alignments with still other structures, creating a landscape-scale instrument for tracking seasonal cycles with remarkable precision. The astronomical sophistication of these alignments becomes even more impressive when multiple sites are considered together. Across hundreds of miles of Amazon basin, earthworks show consistent patterns of celestial orientation that suggest shared astronomical knowledge and possibly coordinated observation programs. The geometric earthworks were isolated installations, but components of a basin-wide system for astronomical observation and calendar keeping that may have been among the most advanced in the pre-Columbian Americas. The practical applications of this astronomical knowledge would have been crucial for Amazonian civilizations. Precise calendar keeping was essential for timing agricultural activities in a tropical environment where seasonal variations are subtle but critical for successful crop production. Knowing exactly when to plant, when to flood fields, and when to harvest could mean the difference between abundance and famine for large populations. The earthwork astronomical installations provided this crucial information with accuracy that allowed sophisticated agricultural planning. But the astronomical alignments go beyond simple calendar keeping to encompass more complex celestial phenomena. Some earthworks are oriented to the rising and setting positions of bright stars like Sirius, Canopus, and the Southern Cross. Others track the movements of planets, particularly Venus, which was of great importance to many ancient American civilizations. A few sites show alignments with more subtle phenomena like the galactic center or the positions of stellar constellations at specific times of year. The integration of astronomical knowledge with earthwork construction required understanding of principles that were informally recognized in European astronomy until much later periods. The builders had to account for the effects of atmospheric refraction on horizon observations, understand the difference between sidereal and solar time, and track the slow changes in stellar positions caused by the Earth's axial precession. This level of astronomical sophistication suggests educational institutions and knowledge transmission systems that could preserve and refine complex information across generations. The ceremonial aspects of astronomical earthworks add another dimension to their significance. Many sites show evidence of large-scale gatherings that coincided with significant celestial events, suggesting that astronomical observations were integrated with religious and social activities. The geometric precision of the sites would have enhanced the drama of these ceremonies, with perfectly framed views of celestial events, reinforcing the connection between earthly activities and cosmic cycles. Recent research has revealed that some Amazonian earthworks may have functioned as prediction devices, allowing ancient astronomers to forecast eclipses, planetary conjunctions, and other rare celestial events. The mathematical complexity required for such predictions suggests computational abilities that rival those of contemporary civilizations in other parts of the world. These capabilities would have given Amazonian astronomer priests considerable social power and may have been crucial for maintaining the political and religious authority necessary to coordinate large-scale construction projects. The astronomical traditions preserved in indigenous mythology provide additional evidence for the sophistication of pre-Columbian Amazonian astronomy. Many tribal groups maintain detailed knowledge of stellar movements, planetary cycles, and eclipse prediction techniques that appear to be much older than their current cultural forms. These oral traditions may preserve fragments of the astronomical knowledge that was once encoded in the geometric earthworks, maintained through centuries of cultural disruption by communities that understood the importance of celestial observation for survival in tropical environments. The discovery of astronomical alignments in Amazonian earthworks has profound implications for understanding the intellectual achievements of pre-Columbian civilizations. These sites weren't just impressive construction projects, but scientific instruments that demonstrate mathematical and observational capabilities that place Amazonian astronomers among the most sophisticated scientists of the ancient world. Their achievements remind us that human curiosity about the cosmos transcends cultural boundaries, and that some of history's most important scientific advances may have occurred in places where we least expect to find them. In the twilight realm where archaeology meets speculation, where hard evidence brushes against tantalizing possibilities, some researchers have begun to wonder whether the lost civilizations of the Amazon might represent something far more extraordinary than even their remarkable achievements suggest. Could these forgotten cities be remnants of a global civilization that once connected distant continents through advanced seafaring and shared knowledge systems? Could the Amazon basin hold pieces of humanity's most enduring mystery, the lost world that Plato called Atlantis? The parallels between Amazonian archaeological discoveries and Plato's description of Atlantis are striking enough to give even skeptical researchers pause. The Greek philosopher described a civilization of concentric circular cities connected by canals, advanced agricultural systems, and sophisticated engineering, a description that could easily apply to the geometric earthworks and hydraulic systems now being discovered throughout the Amazon basin. The scale of the earthworks, some covering areas larger than many modern cities, matches Plato's account of Atlantean grandeur. But the connections go deeper than mere architectural similarities. Plato described Atlantis as a maritime civilization that had contact with distant lands and possessed knowledge of navigation and astronomy that allowed them to travel across vast ocean distances. Recent discoveries of sophisticated astronomical alignments in Amazonian earthworks suggest that the builders possessed exactly the kind of celestial navigation knowledge that would be necessary for long-distance seafaring. The timing of the Amazonian civilizational collapse also aligns intriguingly with various interpretations of when Atlantis might have been destroyed. While Plato placed Atlantis in the distant past relative to his own time, many alternative researchers have suggested that the civilization might have survived much longer than his account indicates, possibly persisting into the medieval period, or even later. The 16th century collapse of Amazonian civilizations, triggered by disease and climatic change, could represent the final destruction of Atlantean remnants. Dr. Santos Menum, a Brazilian archaeologist who has spent decades studying the geometric earthworks of Acre, has proposed that the sophisticated engineering techniques displayed in Amazonian sites suggest knowledge transfer from maritime civilizations with global reach. The precision of the earthwork construction, he argues, required mathematical and engineering knowledge that would be difficult to develop independently in isolated forest societies. The techniques might represent inheritance from much older civilizations with international connections. The plant knowledge preserved in Amazonian cultures provides another intriguing connection to Atlantean speculation. Indigenous groups possess sophisticated understanding of plant medicines and agricultural techniques that seem to include knowledge of species from other continents. Some researchers suggest that this botanical knowledge might represent inheritance from ancient, global trade networks that connected the Americas with other continents long before the official discovery of the New World. The terra preta soils found throughout the Amazon basin have been compared to similar artificial soils found in Africa and Asia, suggesting that the techniques for creating these super fertile grounds might have been part of a global knowledge system rather than independent Amazonian innovation. The chemical composition and creation methods show similarities across continents that are difficult to explain through independent development. Linguistic evidence provides additional fuel for Atlantean speculation. Some researchers have identified cognates and structural similarities between Amazonian languages and tongues spoken in distant parts of the world, particularly in the Pacific and Indian Ocean regions. While mainstream linguists generally explain these similarities through coincidence or very ancient common ancestry, alternative researchers suggest they might indicate more recent contact between geographically separated populations. The geometric earthworks themselves have been compared to similar structures found in other parts of the world, from the stone circles of Britain to the earthworks of the Ohio River Valley. The mathematical principles underlying these constructions show remarkable consistency across cultures that supposedly had no contact with each other. Some researchers interpret this as evidence of shared inheritance from a common source civilization that possessed advanced mathematical and engineering knowledge. The catastrophic end of Amazonian civilizations bears striking resemblances to the sudden destruction that Plato attributed to Atlantis. The rapid collapse of sophisticated societies, the submersion of cities beneath rising waters, in this case, the metaphorical green waters of reclaiming forest, and the loss of advanced knowledge all echo themes from the Atlantis narrative. The speed and completeness of the collapse suggests external factors powerful enough to overwhelm even the most sophisticated civilizations. However, it is important to note that mainstream archaeologists remain deeply skeptical of connections between Amazonian discoveries and Atlantean speculation. They argue that the similarities between different ancient civilizations can be explained by common human responses to similar environmental challenges rather than by direct cultural contact or shared inheritance from lost civilizations. The remarkable achievements of Amazonian peoples, they insist, represent independent innovation rather than inheritance from hypothetical global civilizations. Yet as more evidence emerges from the Amazon basin, the questions become harder to dismiss entirely. The sophistication of the discovered civilizations exceeds what traditional models of cultural development would predict for isolated tropical forest societies. Whether or not these discoveries have any connection to Atlantean mythology, they certainly suggest that our understanding of ancient human capabilities and global connections may be far more limited than we assumed. In the deepest reaches of the Peruvian Amazon, where the forest canopy is so thick that noon feels like twilight, and the air vibrates with the endless symphony of insect calls, indigenous shamans have long spoken of trees that sing. These aren't metaphorical songs born from wind through leaves, but actual tonal vibrations that emerge from the wood itself when touched or struck in specific ways. To most outside observers, such claims seem like folklore born from hallucinogenic visions or spiritual metaphor. But recent scientific investigation has revealed that reality may be far stranger than skeptics assumed. The Shipibo people of the central Peruvian Amazon have maintained detailed knowledge of these singing trees for generations, passing down information about which species produce which tones, how to find trees with the most resonant qualities, and how to use their acoustic properties in healing ceremonies. According to Shipibo tradition, the trees were taught to sing by the forest spirits as a way of communicating healing frequencies that could restore harmony to both human bodies and natural ecosystems. Dr. Rachel Sussman, an ethnobotanist working with indigenous communities in the region, first encountered reports of singing trees during her research on traditional plant medicines. Initially dismissive, she changed her perspective after witnessing a healing ceremony where an elderly shaman demonstrated the acoustic properties of a species locally known as the drum tree. When struck with a wooden mallet in specific patterns, the tree produced deep, resonant tones that seemed to vibrate through the forest floor and could be felt in the chest as much as heard with the ears. Scientific analysis of the singing trees has revealed that their acoustic properties result from unique internal structures that function as natural resonating chambers. The trees develop hollow sections and internal membranes that create acoustic spaces similar to those found in musical instruments. When these natural sound chambers are activated through percussion or friction, they produce complex tonal patterns that can carry for significant distances through the forest. The frequency patterns produced by different species of singing trees show remarkable consistency, with individual trees of the same species producing nearly identical tonal sequences regardless of their size or age. This suggests that the acoustic properties are genetically determined rather than random structural accidents, indicating that the trees may have evolved these capabilities for specific ecological functions that scientists are only beginning to understand. Some researchers have proposed that the acoustic properties of singing trees might function as a form of chemical communication, with the vibrations triggering the release of specific compounds that serve as signals between trees or other forest organisms. The idea of trees communicating through chemical signals is well established in forest ecology, but acoustic communication represents a largely unexplored possibility that could revolutionize understanding of forest ecosystem dynamics. The distribution of singing trees across the Amazon basin follows patterns that seem to correlate with areas of high indigenous cultural activity and archaeological significance. Many of the most acoustically active tree populations are found near ancient earthwork sites, areas with high concentrations of terra preta soils, and locations that maintain strong shamanic traditions. This correlation has led some researchers to speculate that the acoustic properties might have been enhanced through selective cultivation by ancient Amazonian peoples. Indigenous traditions describe the singing trees as having been used for long-distance communication in pre-Columbian times, with trained operators able to send complex messages across vast distances by creating specific rhythmic patterns that could be distinguished from natural forest sounds. The acoustic range of some trees exceeds 5 kilometers under optimal conditions, making such communication networks theoretically feasible across the river systems that connected ancient Amazonian settlements. The healing applications of tree songs recorded in indigenous traditions show intriguing parallels to modern sound therapy techniques. The frequencies produced by different species are said to have specific therapeutic effects, with some tones promoting relaxation and others stimulating alertness or enhancing concentration. While such claims require rigorous scientific testing, preliminary studies have shown that some tree songs do produce measurable physiological responses in human listeners. The acoustic properties of singing trees also appear to affect local wildlife behavior in ways that suggest ecological significance beyond human cultural applications. Certain bird species show preference for nesting near acoustically active trees, and some mammal populations demonstrate behavioral responses to tree songs that indicate the sounds may serve as territorial markers or mating signals in interspecies communication networks. Modern technology has allowed researchers to record and analyze tree songs with unprecedented precision, revealing acoustic complexity that wasn't apparent to earlier observers. Spectral analysis shows that the songs contain harmonic structures, rhythmic patterns, and frequency modulations that suggest information content beyond simple noise. Some recordings contain acoustic patterns that repeat at regular intervals, almost like natural musical compositions with verse and chorus structures. The implications of singing tree research extend beyond curiosity about unusual natural phenomena to questions about the sophistication of indigenous knowledge systems and the acoustic ecology of tropical forests. If trees can indeed communicate through sound, and if ancient peoples understood and utilized these communication networks, then the pre-Columbian Amazon may have possessed information systems of remarkable sophistication that operated on principles we are only beginning to comprehend. As the weight of evidence continues to accumulate from LiDAR surveys, soil analyses, and archaeological excavations across the Amazon basin, a revolutionary possibility begins to emerge, one that could fundamentally rewrite our understanding of human civilization and its origins. What if the Amazon wasn't a backwater region that developed complex societies relatively late in human history, but rather one of the earliest and most important centers of human cultural development? What if this green heart of South America was actually a cradle of civilization that influenced human development across the globe? The conventional narrative of human civilization traces its development from the river valleys of Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus, and China arid or semi-arid regions where agriculture supposedly began and cities first arose. This narrative has always struggled to explain the sophisticated achievements of tropical civilizations, often dismissing them as secondary developments that borrowed ideas from the primary centers of innovation. But what if this entire framework is backwards? What if the Amazon was developing sophisticated societies while other regions were still home to hunter-gatherer bands? The evidence for early Amazonian sophistication continues to mount. Carbon dating of terra preta soils suggests that intensive agriculture began in the Amazon basin over 8,000 years ago, predating the agricultural revolution in many other parts of the world. The geometric earthworks show construction techniques and mathematical knowledge that appear earlier in Amazonian sites than in comparable structures elsewhere in the Americas. The astronomical alignments demonstrate scientific knowledge that was being applied to landscape scale engineering projects while other civilizations were still working out basic calendrical systems. Dr. Anna Roosevelt's groundbreaking work in Maraira Island revealed ceramic traditions and mound-building cultures that flourished in the Amazon estuary over 3,000 years ago, contemporary with the early developments in Mesopotamian civilization, but showing independent innovation and distinctive cultural characteristics. The sophistication of Maraira pottery and the scale of their earthworks suggest that complex societies were developing in the Amazon at the same time they were emerging in the more traditionally recognized centers of civilization. The plant knowledge preserved in Amazonian cultures provides perhaps the most compelling evidence for the region's role as a center of early human innovation. The Amazon basin contains more useful plant species than any other region on Earth, and indigenous populations possess sophisticated knowledge of their cultivation, processing, and application. This botanical mastery suggests thousands of years of experimentation and refinement that could only have developed through sustained cultural continuity in a region rich with plant diversity. The agricultural innovations developed in the Amazon, including terra preta soil creation, polyculture gardening, and sophisticated aquaculture systems, represent some of the most sustainable and productive farming techniques ever developed. These systems supported large populations while maintaining environmental integrity over centuries, demonstrating ecological wisdom that modern agriculture is only beginning to appreciate. If these techniques were developed in the Amazon and then spread to other regions, they could have provided the foundation for agricultural development worldwide. The engineering achievements revealed by modern archaeology, the massive earthworks, sophisticated road systems, and complex hydraulic installations required organizational capabilities and technical knowledge that rival anything achieved by classical civilizations. The scale and precision of these projects suggests social systems capable of coordinating the labor of thousands of workers over extended periods, implying political and administrative innovations that may have preceded similar developments in other parts of the world. Linguistic evidence adds another layer to the case for Amazonian primacy. The Amazon basin contains more linguistic diversity than any other region on Earth, with hundreds of distinct languages representing some of the deepest branches of the human linguistic tree. This diversity suggests that the region has been continuously occupied by sophisticated cultures for extremely long periods, possibly representing one of the earliest centers of human cultural development. The astronomical knowledge encoded in Amazonian earthworks demonstrates mathematical and observational capabilities that were being applied to practical problems thousands of years ago. The integration of astronomical observation with agricultural planning, ceremonial calendar keeping, and landscape engineering suggests scientific traditions that were already mature when they were first being recorded in earthwork constructions that we can now study. If the Amazon was indeed a primary center of human civilization rather than a peripheral region, it would explain many puzzles in the archaeological record. The sophisticated achievements of Amazonian peoples would represent mysterious anomalies, but natural developments in a region that had been a center of innovation for millennia. The apparent connections between Amazonian techniques and practices found in other parts of the world wouldn't be coincidences, but evidence of cultural diffusion from one of humanity's earliest centers of learning. The implications of this reframing extend far beyond academic archaeology to fundamental questions about human potential in environmental relationships. If some of humanity's most sophisticated civilizations developed in tropical forest environments that modern societies consider challenging and unproductive, it suggests that human adaptability and innovation capacity may be far greater than we currently recognize. The sustainable practices developed by Amazonian civilizations could provide models for addressing contemporary environmental challenges. This perspective also challenges assumptions about the relationship between technological advancement and environmental impact. Amazonian civilizations achieved remarkable sophistication while maintaining ecological integrity, demonstrating that human development doesn't necessarily require environmental destruction. Their example suggests possibilities for future development that combines technological advancement with environmental stewardship. As our journey through the hidden mysteries of the Amazon draws to a close, we find ourselves standing at the edge of a vast green ocean that stretches beyond the horizon, its surface barely disturbed by the winds of human understanding. The forest keeps its secrets well, revealing them slowly and reluctantly, like an ancient library written in a language we are only beginning to decipher. Each discovery, every LiDAR scan that penetrates the canopy, every soil sample that reveals human engineering, every geometric earthwork that emerges from satellite imagery adds another fragment to a puzzle that grows more complex and more magnificent with each piece that falls into place. The Amazon that emerges from modern archaeological investigation bears little resemblance to the pristine wilderness that European naturalists described, or the empty forest that early anthropologists imagined. Instead, reveals itself as a palimpsest of human achievement, a landscape where every hill may conceal an ancient pyramid, every straight section of river may mask an engineered canal, and every patch of particularly fertile soil may mark the location of a forgotten city. The forest has been humanity's most effective preservative, maintaining the works of vanished civilizations far better than any museum could, keeping them suspended in green amber until technology could finally reveal their secrets. Yet even as we celebrate these remarkable discoveries, we must acknowledge how much remains unknown. The geometric earthworks that LiDAR has revealed represent only the most durable remnants of what were undoubtedly far more complex and sophisticated settlements. The wooden structures, textile arts, painted decorations, and countless other achievements of Amazonian civilizations have long since returned to the forest soil, leaving only hints of their former grandeur. We are seeing the bones of these ancient societies, impressive as they are, while their flesh and spirit remain largely invisible to modern investigation. The people who built these remarkable civilizations remain largely anonymous, their names lost to time, their faces known only from scattered stone figurines and ceramic portraits. But their legacy lives on in the transformed landscape they created, in the enriched soils they engineered, in the forest islands they planted, and in the waterways they modified to serve human needs while maintaining ecological integrity. They achieved something that modern civilization struggles to accomplish. They created sustainable prosperity that enhanced rather than diminished the natural world that supported them. The catastrophic collapse that silenced these civilizations in the 16th century stands as one of history's greatest tragedies, a loss comparable to the destruction of the Library of Alexandria, but magnified across an entire continent. The knowledge systems, artistic traditions, architectural techniques, and ecological wisdom that were lost in that demographic catastrophe represent an incalculable impoverishment of human heritage. We can only imagine what additional insights into sustainable living, botanical medicine, astronomical observation, and social organization might have been preserved if these cultures had survived to share their accumulated wisdom with the modern world. But perhaps the most profound implication of Amazonian archaeology is what it suggests about human potential and adaptability. These discoveries demonstrate that sophisticated civilizations can flourish in environments that modern societies consider challenging or unproductive. They show that humans can develop remarkable achievements while living in harmony with complex natural ecosystems. They prove that sustainability and prosperity are not mutually exclusive, but can be woven together into social systems that persist for centuries without degrading their environmental foundation. The indigenous communities that survived the Great Collapse and continue to live in the Amazon today carry within their traditions fragments of this ancient wisdom. Their knowledge of plant medicines, sustainable agriculture, and forest management represents not primitive survivalism, but the preservation of sophisticated techniques developed over millennia of experimentation and refinement. They are the living libraries of Amazonian civilization, maintaining connections to ways of thinking and being that the modern world desperately needs to understand. As climate change threatens to transform the Amazon from rainforest to savanna, the lessons embedded in its archaeological record become increasingly urgent. The ancient civilizations that once flourished in the basin achieved remarkable prosperity while maintaining the forest ecosystems that supported them. Their techniques for creating fertile soils, managing water resources, and maintaining biodiversity could provide crucial insights for addressing contemporary environmental challenges. The geometric earthworks that dot the Amazon landscape continue to pose questions that may never be fully answered. Were they ceremonial centers where thousands gathered to celebrate seasonal transitions? Were they defensive installations that protected urban populations from warfare? Were they astronomical observatories that allowed precise tracking of celestial cycles? Were they agricultural installations that maximized food production while maintaining ecological balance? Perhaps they were all of these things and more, representing achievements that transcend the categories we use to understand human activities. The Amazon's lost cities remind us that human history is far richer and more complex than our textbooks suggest. They challenge us to expand our definitions of civilization, sophistication, and achievement to include ways of living that modern societies have largely forgotten. They invite us to imagine possibilities for human development that do and require the destruction of natural ecosystems, but instead enhance and preserve them. Standing at the edge of this green ocean of secrets, watching the mist rise from the forest canopy as another dawn breaks over the Amazon basin, we are reminded that exploration and discovery are far from finished. Every new technology, every innovative research technique, every partnership between modern scientists and indigenous knowledge keepers has the potential to reveal new chapters in the story of human achievement that lies hidden beneath the forest's emerald veil. The Amazon keeps its secrets, but it has not kept them all. And in the fragments that have been revealed lies a mirror that reflects not just humanity's forgotten past, but possibilities for its future. A future where technology and tradition, prosperity and sustainability, human achievement and natural preservation can once again be woven together into the kind of lasting civilization that the forest remembers and the world needs to rediscover. Perhaps that is the Amazon's greatest gift to modern humanity, not just the oxygen it produces or the carbon it stores, but the reminder it offers that other ways of being human are possible, that other forms of civilization have existed, and that the green veil that hides these achievements may also conceal the keys to creating a more sustainable and harmonious future for all who call this planet home. If you found yourself drawn into the mysteries that sleep beneath the Amazon's green canopy, consider subscribing for more journeys into the hidden chapters of human history. The forest has many more secrets to share, and every discovery brings us closer to understanding not just where we came from, but where we might go from here.